Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the first annual Typeface Championship. Where we left off, 64 typefaces were selected and competed, and from 29 voters, we now have the results of the opening round. So let's begin the tried and true region. Now, the first battle was between Helvetica and News Gothic, and like the Chad Helvetica is, it came out on top with 62.1% of the votes. So Helvetica will be moving on to the next round, and it'll be going up against Avant-Garde Gothic, because let's be honest here, who in their right mind is going to pick Futura? There is literally a book called Do Not Use Futura unless you're like these companies. Now, surprisingly, I'm amazed that this did not end in a tie, but Dido came out on top of the Doni. So that's a win for Dido, so congratulations. And it's going to be going up against Serif Gothic. Wow, that was really tight, but Serif Gothic also managed to get on top. Good day for Lublin, ain't it? So after that, the battle between Stymie and Lublin Graph ended up with Lublin once again on top. This is insane, bro. How many W's can Lublin take? And taking home the win for this round, Compacta gets to move on and face Lublin Graph head to head. Coming up next for the final part of the tried and true section, Franklin Gothic demolishes Cable with a 75.9%, and it's going to be taking on the legendary ITC Garamond. In all retrospect, ITC Garamond is not that good of a typeface, but we have fun. Alright, on to the freebies, and of course, Comic Sans takes the W from Chalkboard, because if Comic Sans ends up winning, I'm killing myself. Okay, and believe it or not, Enter was completely smashed by IBM Plex. I guess because it's a font that has a sans and the serif version, it got the win. Now, I'm amazed that Lobster came out on top of Barlow. That is incredibly stupid. Alright, and it's going to be fighting Bungie. Wow, you guys do not like normal fonts, do you? Okay, and in the battle between Lemon and Milk and Beebus, Beebus came out on top. Good job, Beebus! Now you just need Butthead. And then after that, oh goodness gracious, DM Sans, move on up and take down Beavis for me, why don't you? And then the battle for League of Movable Type. And now for the battle of League of Movable Type, which, believe it or not, League Gothic moves on. And it's going to be taking on the legend of classic memes, Impact. I guess Papyrus was too freaky for the competition. I need to stop with that. On down to the newcomers. Believe it or not, Carrick, the ugly grotesque, gets to move on. I guess it got really famous for being featured in Idiot that it gets to move on. How awesome. In the battle between Bagos and Umex, Umex bags that win. I'm assuming it because it's got that script version, but yeah. Congratulations, Umex. And for that, you get to be the script version of yourself. Yay. And then the battle between Hypertext and Wagram, Hypertext came out on top. I feel like there's some sort of bias towards the serifs in this conversation. Alright, and then in the battle between Ozic and Jubilee, the wonderful Ozic gets to move on! How wonderful! Visual and Effects was almost a tie, but believe it or not, Visual came out on top. Ooh, the most retro of typefaces gets to move on. And sadly, almost got left in the dust to get beaten by Gatwick, which now gets to move on and battle Visual itself. In the fight between Serial A and Job Clarendon, Job Clarendon gets to win and move forward. How awesome! And last but not least for the newcomers, Ginto was just barely beating Forevs. I can't believe that either. I was pretty convinced y'all would hate this font, but wow, good job. And lastly, for the opening rounds, moving on to the semi, what's the next round? The second round? We're going to be doing the weirdos. Afronaut demolished Communa. Once again, proving people like Sans over Serif. The base series versus Serial E. The base series wins. I guess maybe I might be wrong. Maybe people do like serifs. And in the fight between Circuit and Citizen, Citizen came out on top, so clearly my smear campaign worked. Good job, Citizen. And the fight between Platelet and Pachinko came out on top, so Citizen and Pachinko will be fighting. Template Gothic versus Quartet. Template Gothic came out on top. I feel like it came out on top because Radiohead used it on their first album. Next up, Amplifier and Confidential. Confidential 1. Confidential 1. So Confidential is going to take on Template Gothic. And for the last bracket of this round, Dead History versus Odd Mono. It was a close one, but Odd Mono moves on. All right, let's change that cycle then. It has a lot of stylistic sets, a lot. Look at all those stylistic. Yeah, there you go. And now for the last one, Flying Object has beaten Arbitrary. And there you have it, folks. So there you go, guys. This is going to be the second round. Let's go over the second round. Helvetica versus Avant-Garde Gothic. This is going to be a tough one. I really hope Helvetica comes out on top, but then again, it's up to you guys, not me. Dido versus Serif Gothic. I feel like it's going to be very obvious which one wins this battle. Lublin Craft versus Compacta. Gee, I wonder. And lastly, Franklin Gothic versus ITC Garamond. Oh, this is going to be really tough. The two kings of magazine advertisement display fonts. Moving on to the freebies. Comic Sans versus IBM Plex. IBM, you better demolish Comic Sans. We cannot let him win. Lobster versus Bungie. That's going to be a silly one. Super silly. Beavis New versus DM Sans. Ooh, my. League Gothic versus Impact. Ooh. It looks like I set up a situation accident where two compressed Gothic fonts are fighting each other. Next up, Carrick versus Umex. Will Umex be able to carry on now that it's in its script form? Hypertext versus Ozic. The normal versus the wacky. A visual versus Gatwick. The retro versus the wide. And Job Clarendon versus Ginto. A serif versus a condensed serif versus a wide sans. And lastly, the weirdos. Afronaut versus the base series. Citizen versus Pachinko. Template Gothic versus Confidential. Two 90s fonts going at it. And lastly, Odd Mono versus Flying Object. Which of these 32 fonts are going to come out on top? We will find out soon. Just stay tuned to the first annual Typeface Championship. Woo!